Welcome back. We're going to continue our discussion on two or more function group nomenclature. As I mentioned in the previous video, that this chart is kind of like your template on which you can fix your knowledge. Okay. And this chart actually makes more sense when you're actually working out a problem. Okay. So let me just walk you through quickly on what you're really looking for and how you can actually make use of this chart in actually completing the process of naming the compound. Okay, so let's say I give you a compound with two functional groups to start with. Okay, you have to first determine where it is on the totem pole, or which group is higher priority compared to the other group. That's the first thing you got to do. And the second thing you have to do is determine how many carbons are there in the longest chain. If you do those two, you have completed almost 60% of the process involved in naming that compound. The remaining 40% is what you're going to use the next part of the chart, which is the prefix and the suffix. And once you've figured out which group is low priority, that group will take on the prefix. So the prefix is usually associated with low priority. Okay, and it usually could be multiple first names. If you have only one low priority group, there's only one first name. But say I give you two low priority and always one high priority, then you'll have two first names and one last name. Suffix usually goes with high priority and usually ends up being the last name as well. Okay. So I'll show you how to use this chart in the context of solving a problem, because that's the only way all of this would make any sense. Okay, looking at this chart for, I don't know, 2 million years will have literally no effect on your knowledge. All right, so I've got some examples here. And so right away, this is the carbon. And as I said, if your double bond O is at the end of the chain, then it is an aldehyde. So this is the functional group. This is one of them, and this is the other one. So if we go back to the chart, aldehyde is above alcohol, which is the OH, right? So aldehyde is the higher priority group, and alcohol is a low priority group. So that's what the first thing I told you to do. And the second thing I asked you to do is to figure out the long chain and then the numbering. The long chain is 6 carbons. Which side do we start numbering from? Obviously, the side that contains the higher priority group. And in this case, it's the aldehyde. So we started from this side, right? So if you go back to the chart, if your aldehyde is the higher priority group, then you're going to be replacing whatever your longest chain alkane is, the E with the Al. So the long chain here is 6, so it's a hexane. So we replace the E with the Al, so it'll be hexanal, and that'll be in the first place, so it's 1-hexanal. So that's the last name. How do we go about the first name? Well, the second functional group is in the 4th position, so write 4. And what is the alcohol if it's a low priority group? If the alcohol is a low priority group, you call it hydroxy. Okay, so if we go back, 4-hydroxy, 1-hexanal, and that's it. Again, second compound, this is the acid functional group, so circle it. This is the ketone functional group, circle it. These are my two functional groups in the compound. If I go back to the chart, the carboxylic acid or acid is the highest functional group, and then your ketone is slightly lower in priority. So which side do we start numbering from? This side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So we know it's hexane, right? And to write the last name, we have to replace the E with this suffix, right? OX, whichever one is the higher priority group, that takes the suffix and replace the E but with that. So it'll be hexanoic acid, right? Write the word acid as well. So we replace the E with this. and it's in the first place, so 1-hexanoic acid. That's the last name. And the ketone group is in the fourth position. What if the ketone is a low priority group? It's called oxo. So it'll be 4-oxo 1-hexanoic acid. Let's keep going. This is one of the two functional groups. This is a C, ketone, and this is an alcohol group. If you go to the table, ketone is higher than alcohol in priority. So we start numbering from this side. So it's again 6. So hexane, we are going to replace because our ketone is the higher priority group, we're going to replace the E with -one, right? Ketone is a higher priority group. We replace, it takes the suffix. So hexanone, right? And it's in the second position. So it's 2-hexanone is the last name, right? And the alcohol group is in the fifth position. Because alcohol is a low priority compared to ketone, it takes the prefix. So it's hydroxy, okay? So it's 5-hydroxy 2-hexanone, right? Good. So CN is nitrile, right? And this is the ketone group. Clearly, nitrile is a higher priority group versus ketone. So we start numbering from this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, nitrile is a higher priority group. We replace the E with nitrile, so it'll be hexa nitrile, okay? And it's in the first position. Because ketone is low priority compared to nitrile, which is cyanide, CN is cyanide, and ketone is low priority compared to cyanide, it's oxo, right? So it's in the fourth position, so 4-oxo 1-hexanitrile, or hexanitrile. I usually write the 1. Keep going. So we have our methyl group, right? And we have our hydroxy group, right? Our alcohol group. And if you go to the table here, well, methyl contain only single bonds, right? So alkane is low priority compared to alcohol. So alcohol gets the first priority. So the suffix for alcohol is OL. So we start numbering from this side. So 3, 4, 5, 6 is hexane again. And so we replace the E with the OL. So it's in the second position. So you cannot forget the number of, because it's 2-hexanol, that's the last name. And then the methyl group is in the fourth position. So 4-methyl 2-hexanol. Okay. Let's continue this. This is very interesting and in fact my favorite one. So you got your alcohol group and you also have your double bond, right? Which is alkene, right? So if you go to the table, alkene is low compared to alcohol. So alcohol takes the suffix, alkene takes the prefix, right? So how do we go about doing this? Well, there's two things you can do, okay? Which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? I've never seen anybody write alkenyl, but you know, if you strictly go by what I have there, then it'll be 4, right? But I'm going to write you the way that I have seen people do, and it's the most acceptable one, which is, well, this is a very special case. So I'm going to spend a little time here. So we have 6 carbons, so it's hexane, right? So the double bond is between 4 and 5, right? So first write 4-hexene, right? That's where the double bond is, because the double bond is part of the chain, 4-hexene, right? And then EFGHI, and then 3-methyl, right? Sorry, the 4-methyl is also there, 4-hexene, 4-methyl, right? and then the alcohol group is in the second position. So we don't say hexanyl, but we say 2-ol. That's it. Okay, this is the way it's usually done. You got 6 carbons, right? So the hexane, instead of it going with the alcohol, it actually goes with the hexene. So 4-hexene, because the double bond is between 4 and 5, and the methyl group is in the fourth, so 4-methyl, and then 2-ol. Now there is something we have to do for this particular compound. Because it contains 1 hydrogen on this particular carbon, it qualifies for a ZRE. So if you do that math, then this will be 1, this will be 2, this will be, if you put the hydrogen here, this will be 2, this will be 1, right? So 1 and 1 are on the opposite side, so it'll be actually 4E. You have to complete it saying 4E. Sorry, I'm kind of at the end of this, so 4E in a bracket, 4-hexene, 4-methyl, 2-ol. That's when it actually is completed. You have to specify whether it's a E or Z and specify where that is. It's usually between 4 and 5 in this case, so it's 4E. And again, here it's a nitrile, so it's C, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So it's a pentane. A nitrile is a higher prior group compared to this. This is an amino, right? If it's a low priority, it takes on the shape as amino. So it'll be pentane, right? So pentanitrile, right? Replace the E with the nitrile group, and it's 1-pentanitrile, right? And then the amino group is in the fourth spot, so 4-amino, 1-pentanitrile. All right, let's wrap this up with this. So of all of this, OH, we have 3 functional groups: the alcohol, and then we have this, and we have this. This is the most difficult of them. But we start numbering from this side because this contains alcohol, which is the high priority group, right? So how do we go about doing this? Well, as I said, there's 6 carbons, right? So the double bond is between 2 and 3. So first write 2-hexene, okay? 2-hexene, right? The fluoro group is, F comes before, comes before H, so it'll be 4-fluoro, 2-hexene, and then the alcohol group is the highest priority, so its suffix is OL, and it's also in the second position, so 2-hexene, 2-ol. And we cannot forget whether it qualifies for a ZRE. So this is 1, this is 2, this is hydrogen, so this is 2, this is 1, so it's a Z, so it'll be, I'm going to say 2Z. You have to write that in the front, okay? So it's 2Z because it's between 2 and 3 double bond. So 2Z, 4-fluoro, 2-hexene, 2-ol. Now, this might be a little cognitive overload for many of you, but I'm only recording 1 video for this whole concept. So you may have to watch this more than once and then practice these problems, okay? You'll be part of your My Thoughts. You have to, this one particular assignment, I will make sure to check every one very carefully so that we cannot have any lack of understanding on this concept, all right? So you have to use the chart. If you use the chart, you will have absolutely 0 problem narrowing in on this concept, all right? So stay tuned for further concepts.